Alien Huntress hunted him for food, but found a different kind of hunger. The radiant jungle of the planet. Varelia glimmered in emerald and gold, every frond and blossom pulsing with its own inner glow. Jace crept quietly through the tangled roots, his movements measured, gathering tough orange reeds beneath a towering spiralwood. Sweat trickled down his brow as the sultry air pressed in from all sides, carrying with it the scent of blooming Aurelian orchids and the distant hum of unseen creatures. He crouched, slicing a cluster of reeds with a bone knife, every nerve alert to the jungle's hidden rhythm. He kept his nerves hidden. Years of survival had taught him composure, but nothing in his past could have prepared him for being stalked by a huntress like her. For 4 days he'd sensed her presence, a tingling in the air, a shadow at the edge of vision. She was more than a rumor, more than a nightmare. She was a force that pressed upon his mind, a living whisper in the undergrowth. Each evening she circled his camp with feline precision, always counterclockwise, her ritual both mesmerizing and intimidating. Jace had watched from the flickering glow of his fire, heart pounding as her silhouette glided from shadow to shadow, stripes blending seamlessly with the mottled light. Her 8-foot form was a vision of predatory elegance, orange and black striped fur, a sleek, muscular build, golden eyes that caught every glint of light, and sharp black markings that slashed across her face. Her long, striped tail flicked behind her, betraying her mood, a restless, hypnotic motion that matched the quickening beat in his chest. By day, he marked her passage in the subtle shifts of foliage, the faint impressions her powerful paws left in the moss. He noted how she lingered just beyond the edge of his vision, never allowing herself to be truly seen. At night, the golden fireflies would gather, as if drawn by her presence, their glow reflecting in her eyes. Jace had watched her as she watched him, tracking her patterns, noting how she observed his every attempt to build shelter or set traps, her curiosity as vivid as the golden glow of her eyes. He should have been terrified. Instead, Jace felt a thrill at their dangerous game. The edge of fear sharpened his senses. The possibility of contact, of conversation, drew him with a force he could not resist. He straightened, hefting his satchel. The reeds brushed his arm, leaving tiny orange streaks against his skin. "I know you're watching. You've been at it for days," he called out, his voice steady, echoing among the spiralwood trunks. A soft rustle answered, barely more than a sigh of leaves. Black stripes flickered at the jungle's edge, blending with the shadows. Jace grinned to himself, heart leaping at the confirmation of her nearness. "Your stalking is flawless," he continued, tucking the reeds into his satchel with deliberate slowness. "But you always circle the same way. Beautiful, but not exactly unpredictable." High above, the canopy shimmered with a sudden pulse of gold, as if the jungle itself responded to his challenge. He shifted his stance, imitating a posture he'd seen her use, a low, balanced crouch, feet splayed for silent movement. He held the pose, a silent signal. "I'm learning." The tension in the air thickened. From the tangle of broad-leaved ferns and luminous vines, her silhouette uncoiled, 8 feet of feline grace, stepping into the golden light that filtered through the leaves. She moved with the languid authority of an apex predator, muscles rippling beneath striped fur, each motion measured and deliberate. "Shall we stop pretending?" Jace smiled, unable to resist the tug of bravado. "Or will you finally tell me why I'm still breathing?" She padded forward, eyes narrowing, her markings darkening like storm clouds. "I am Syrah," she said, her voice low and resonant, tail lashing through the golden motes. "You'll remember it. It may be the last name you hear." Jace met her gaze, refusing to back down. Up close, her fur was a tapestry of stripes and sleek muscle, her golden eyes burning with intelligence and something deeper, something hungry. "Lovely name," he said, letting the compliment hang between them. Her ears flicked back, a warning, but the black markings along her cheeks glowed with a faint inner light at the words. Syrah's jaw tightened, and she regarded him with wary curiosity. "You know nothing of my reasons, human." "I know you're the youngest prime huntress in your pride," he replied, beginning to circle her in a mirrored dance. His boots pressed softly into the moss, matching her careful tread. "I know your stripes flare when you're challenged, and I know you're not just here for the hunt." She flexed her claws, obsidian talons glinting in the filtered sunlight, but didn't attack. Her breathing was slow and deep, chest rising and falling with measured power. "Maybe I enjoy playing with my meal." Jace stepped closer, emboldened by the unspoken electricity between them. He felt the heat radiating from her body, the sharp, wild scent of her fur. "Or maybe you're hungry for something different." Her growl was a complex sound, halfway between a threat and a purr, rumbling in her throat. The tip of her tail brushed his arm, lingering for a heartbeat longer than necessary. A warning, a question, a dare. "Careful, little prey," she murmured, her voice curling around the words like smoke. "Dangerous game," Jace whispered back. With a sudden, fluid motion, he slipped beneath her guard, darting into the thick undergrowth. For a split second, their eyes met. His, bright with challenge. Hers, blazing with unmistakable interest. He vanished into the jungle, heart racing as her laughter, wild and musical, echoed through the twilight. "Run fast, clever one. The night is long." And as the golden shadows deepened, the hunt, intimate and exhilarating, truly began. Jace moved through the glowing forest, no longer fleeing, but guiding Syrah along a route of his own design. He darted between trees whose luminous bark shimmered beneath his touch, the forest reacting to his presence with ripples of light. The remains of his escape pod had become both fortress and invitation. Hull fragments jutted from the undergrowth, festooned with transplanted glowing blossoms that formed confusing, shifting patterns meant to mislead even the sharpest eyes. A maze of thorny orange reeds, woven by his own hands, blocked off high ground, forcing Syrah to follow him at his level, on his terms. He ducked beneath a twisted arch of metal and bark, pausing for breath. His heart hammered, but it was no longer from fear. He could feel Syrah's presence, close, alert, her aura crackling in the charged air. The jungle had become a stage for their dance, and he was determined to play his part. Syrah's voice drifted down from above, teasing and amused. "You've prepared well? Have you been planning this since you landed?" He pressed against a fallen trunk, steadying his breath and grinning despite himself. "I like to make an impression." Leaves rustled and a shadow passed overhead, her striped tail visible for a heartbeat, then gone. She chuckled, the sound resonant and wild, like thunder beneath silk. "Is that what this is? An attempt to impress?" "Confidence is how I've lasted this long," he replied, moving deeper into his web of tricks. Every step was calculated. He skirted the edge of a patch of carnivorous vines, led her past an upturned pod hatch camouflaged with iridescent petals. "That, and the way you look at me when you think I'm not watching." A flash of orange to his right, a streak low and sinuous, just beyond reach. She was testing his defenses, slipping between the reeds, her movements teasing rather than threatening. Her golden eyes caught and reflected the jungle's inner light, tracking him with predatory interest. "And how do I look at you?" she teased, voice curling around him like smoke. Jace's hand brushed a hidden lever. A spring-loaded net burst upward, showering Syrah in shimmering pollen from the blossom traps he'd rigged days before. The fine dust clung to her fur, making her stripes flicker and blaze with every shift. "Like you're seeing something new," he answered, watching her reaction. "Like you're hungry for a challenge." Syrah shook herself, golden motes scattering around her. She didn't seem angry. Her tail swayed, a slow, thoughtful rhythm betraying more interest than annoyance. "Maybe I just enjoy watching you squirm," she purred, prowling closer, her movements languid yet poised to strike. "I haven't squirmed yet," Jace countered, voice low as he let her close the distance. Her glowing form was all fire and intent, every muscle coiled. "But I think you're more invested in this than you admit." She lunged suddenly, a blur of muscle and stripes, and Jace braced himself, refusing to retreat. Their bodies collided, momentum carrying them together into a bed of glowing moss that burst with blue and violet sparks. The air filled with the scent of crushed leaves and wild adrenaline. Syrah pinned him easily, her strength undeniable, her body hot and electric against his. He lay beneath her, feeling the weight of her gaze and the power held in restraint. Her golden eyes were wide, searching his face for something she couldn't name. "Invested?" she echoed, her muzzle inches from his. Jace's breath mingled with hers, his hands open in surrender and trust. "I think you want more than a meal." Her claws pressed lightly to his shoulders, sharp enough to warn, gentle enough to thrill. Her tail curled possessively around his leg, a soft, sinuous band of heat. The pollen set her aglow, and in that moment she was a living ember. Dangerous, radiant, alive. He reached up, slow and deliberate, tracing the edge of a black marking along her jaw. Her breath hitched, the marking deepening in color at his touch. For a moment, neither moved. The world reduced to the pressure of fingertips, the shared cadence of their heartbeats. "Not guesses," he murmured. "Just what I see." "You could have ended this, but you're here, shining like firelight, trying to convince yourself I'm just prey." Syrah closed her eyes, leaning into his touch, her ears flicking back in agitation, or maybe something gentler. "You are infuriating," she whispered, voice husky with longing and denial. "You are astonishing," Jace replied, his words honest, reverent. A rumbling sound vibrated through her chest, part growl, part purr, the sound of power held in check. She lingered over him a moment longer, golden eyes burning, as if memorizing every line of his face. Then, with a sudden flex of muscle, she was gone, vanishing into the undergrowth, but her voice lingered in the air, thick with promise. "The night is young, clever prey. I'm not finished with you yet." Jace sat up, chest still heaving. The echoes of her touch seemed to shimmer through the moss and his skin alike. The thrill of their game, the possibility of something more, burned in his blood. But before he could rise, a distant horn shattered the quiet. Its note was low, ominous, and it rolled through the jungle in waves, scattering birds and silencing insects. Syrah reappeared at the edge of the clearing, her form tense, stripes shifting from vibrant orange to urgent red. Her eyes met his with a new gravity. "They're coming," she hissed, tail wrapping protectively around him. "The Pride leader has called the blood run. All hunters will pursue you." Jace's mind snapped into survival mode, his thoughts racing. "How many?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. 12 of the best. They won't be as gentle as I am." Her ears flattened, and for the first time, Jace saw a flicker of fear in her expression. Not for herself, but for him. "And you?" he pressed, desperate to anchor her to his side. "I should join them. Refusal means exile." Her words were harsh, but her eyes flickered with doubt and something dangerously close to hope. Jace reached for her, taking her hand in his. Her palm was rough and warm, her claws retracted. Then help me survive. She hesitated, the war within her evident in the tense line of her jaw, the rapid flutter of her tail. They follow scent and light, she said at last, the words tumbling out in a rush. Every trace. You must mask yourself, move through shadow. If they see us together. He was already digging in his pouch, pulling out crushed leaves with a bitter, pungent scent. Your kind hates this smell. It'll hide me. Syrah blinked, surprise mingling with admiration. You really did plan for this, she said, her voice softening. For a heartbeat, her golden eyes were full of something tender. He squeezed her hand, a silent promise. I didn't plan on wanting the Huntress to survive as much as myself. The horns sounded again, closer and more urgent, echoes bounding from trunk to trunk, growing in number. Syrah's ears twitched at the sound, her grip tightening on his hand. They're nearly here, she said, voice tight with urgency. I must appear to hunt you. Remember our signal, Jace said, locking eyes with her, voice low and fierce, and try not to enjoy the show too much. Her stripes flared in a final defiant blaze. She leaned close, her breath a warm promise against his cheek, then slipped away with impossible grace, her voice joining the rising hunting calls, at once part of them and apart, singular and unmistakable. Jace crouched in the blue-lit moss, heart pounding, ready to turn the hunter's strengths against them. The night around him vibrated with danger and possibility. In the shifting shadows, he felt Syrah's presence still, an ally, a threat, a spark waiting to ignite. The first hunter crashed into the clearing, just as Jace expected. A massive body clad in blazing stripes, claws unsheathed and jaws wide, barreled through the glowing undergrowth. Before the hunter's golden eyes could focus, Jace hurled a handful of pungent leaves into the warrior's face. The acrid scent exploded in the air, and the hunter recoiled, hacking and clawing at the invisible assault. A shadow dropped from above, another hunter, sleek and younger, drawn by the promise of blood, landing hard on the first's back in confusion. Both tumbled in a tangle of fur and fury. Jace used the chaos, darting past and kicking a hidden tripwire. A concealed pod hatch snapped open, releasing a burst of white light and a swirling cloud of glowing pollen. The hunters staggered, eyes watering, their senses overwhelmed. The prey is cunning, one snarled, voice raw and incredulous, swiping at the air as if the very light betrayed them. Above, Syrah circled with perfect silence, her stripes melting into the shifting gold of the upper canopy. Only Jace could see her for what she was, a flicker of tail, a glint of molten eyes in the leaves. She watched everything, and he felt her presence like a silent promise, guiding him through the mayhem. He pressed his advantage. The hunters relied on height, on their glowing fur and sharpened instincts. But Jace turned those strengths into liabilities. The maze of reeds and transplanted blossoms reflected light at odd angles, confusing their depth perception. Every step they took, another trap. A net here, a stinging vine there, the scent of crushed leaves warping the very ground they trusted. 3 more hunters vaulted into the fray, one from the left, leaping with the power of a panther, 2 from the right, swift as shadows. Jace rolled through the moss, leaving false trails, pressing his palms to the ground to scatter more of the sharp, bitter leaves. The air filled with haze, glowing pollen and stinging aroma mixing until the hunters coughed and squinted, unable to rely on their senses. Where is he? One growled, voice thick with frustration. He moves like a ghost. Another snapped, clawing at a false trail. Jace grinned, sweat slicking his brow, adrenaline singing in his blood. In the scented fog, they couldn't track him. In the fractured light, they couldn't trust their eyes. He was everywhere and nowhere, always a step ahead. A shadow loomed, and the ground shook with the force of a landing. The Pride leader, massive and battle-scarred, with stripes faded to a deep iron red, dropped into the center of the chaos. His mane bristled, claws like daggers flashing in the golden gloom. He took in the confusion with a single contemptuous snarl. "Resourceful prey," he growled, voice rumbling through the clearing. "But tricks won't save you." Jace's heart hammered, but he didn't hesitate. He dodged the leader's first swipe, rolling between the giant's legs, the world reduced to flashes of teeth and the hiss of displaced air. The leader spun, faster than seemed possible for his bulk, but Jace was already gone, slipping straight into Syrah's waiting arms at the edge of the clearing. She grabbed him, claws retracted, her grip strong but gentle. "I have him," she called, voice ringing out for all to hear. She pulled him close, holding him just a moment too long, her eyes meeting his with fierce affection. "Now," Jace whispered, breathless and determined. Syrah spun, tossing him into the reeds as if claiming her prize. Jace hit the ground, rolled, and triggered the last of his traps. Pollen clouds erupted in every direction, light bursts strobing through the air, and false signals, a cacophony of sound and scent, sent the hunters stumbling. Instincts scrambled, they turned on one another, confused by the conflicting trails and Syrah's well-timed signals. "Hold your positions!" one hunter shouted, but another, blinded by pollen, bowled into him, sending both sprawling. The Pride leader roared, his voice slicing through the confusion. "Circle up! Ignore the tricks!" But it was too late. Syrah's stripes, shifting with the colors of the pollen and light, matched Jace's signals perfectly. With subtle movements, she directed him through the chaos, her tail and body language invisible to all but him. He darted from shadow to shadow, drawing the hunters in a spiral, their numbers splitting and converging at the center of the trap. The world became a whirl of confusion, thudding paws, flashing eyes, the glitter of pollen, and the sharp tang of herb smoke. Jace triggered the final mechanism. A hidden cache of dried herbs burst open, releasing a thick, smoky blanket that rolled across the clearing, blanketing everything in a blue haze. Hunters staggered, coughing, eyes streaming, muscles twitching from the unfamiliar irritant. In the sudden quiet, Jace and Syrah perched above the chaos, crouched atop a fallen pod panel. The hunters floundered below, the prey now in control. "Impossible," the Pride leader snarled, teeth bared in fury. He stood tall even in confusion, his scars gleaming. "No human could do this." Jace met his gaze, voice steady, defiant. "Or maybe you've never met prey that fights back." The leader's eyes narrowed, fury and calculation mixing in their golden depths. He raised his head, voice booming through the haze. "Syrah, finish him. Prove your loyalty." Syrah tensed at Jace's side, tail curling protectively around his waist. For a moment she hesitated, all eyes on her. Hunters panting, Pride leader bristling, the whole jungle holding its breath. "I cannot," she said, her words calm but unyielding, stripes steadying into a blaze of defiance. "I will not." The Pride leader's snarl became a sneer. "You'd choose this creature over your pride?" His voice was full of scorn and a dark kind of sorrow. Syrah lifted her chin, her gaze unwavering. "I choose to honor strength, wherever I find it." The leader spat on the moss, his voice turning cold. "Prove yourself human. Face me in single combat. Survive, and you are hunter. None will question your bond." The words hung in the air like a gauntlet thrown. Jace looked at Syrah, her stripes burning like live coals, her eyes pleading and proud all at once. The hunters watched, some with shock, others with grudging respect. The meaning of the challenge blazed through the clearing. This was not just survival. It was a chance for belonging, for recognition, and for something neither of them had dared imagine. Jace nodded, jaw set. I accept. The duel was set for sunrise. The jungle seemed to lean in, every glowing leaf and pulsing blossom listening. In that moment, nothing else mattered. Only the promise of the coming battle, the weight of loyalty, and the flicker of hope shining between prey and hunter in the deepest shadows of Virelia. That night, the glowing jungle pulsed as Syrah led Jace to her sanctuary, a den high in the branches, suspended in the sheltering arms of a colossal spiral wood. The trunk's natural spirals twisted upward, carrying them above the luminous fog. Syrah moved with predatory grace, but her touch at Jace's waist was gentle, guiding rather than pushing. He trusted her implicitly as she navigated a bridge of braided vines, lit by the soft shimmer of blue crystal embedded in the bark. Inside, her den was a secret world. The walls arched in a dome overhead, woven from thick, living vines intertwined with crystal shards that caught and refracted the jungle's light. Hues of gold, blue, and green chased one another across the ceiling. Arranged pelts, soft, patterned with stories, formed a thick bed in the center, surrounded by shelves of bone, shell, and iridescent trophies from countless hunts. It smelled of musk, sweet flowers, and the sharp tang of ozone. The space radiated belonging, memory, and pride. Syrah's tail never left Jace's waist, even as she paused just inside the entrance, her gaze searching his face. "No human has seen this place," she said softly, her voice more vulnerable than he had ever heard. The admission hung in the air between them like a fragile jewel. Jace looked around, his breath catching. He reached out to touch the nearest vine, feeling its subtle pulse beneath his fingertips. "It's incredible," he said, turning back to her. The shifting crystal light played over her fur, setting her stripes ablaze with living color. Syrah circled him, her movements both protective and territorial. Her shoulders tensed, her golden eyes fierce yet uncertain. "You still haven't told me how you'll win tomorrow." The question was a challenge, but also a plea. Jace smiled, stepping into her orbit. He reached up, his fingers tracing a black marking along her jaw, one he'd learned was especially sensitive. Syrah shivered, her eyes closing for a heartbeat. "Would it help if you knew?" he teased gently. She huffed, stripes flickering with agitation and longing. "No," she admitted, the word almost a sigh. "But I need to know if this is goodbye." He cupped her face in both hands, his thumbs stroking the soft fur beneath her eyes. The gesture was so human it startled her. Her ears twitched, her breath caught. "Do you trust me?" he asked, searching her gaze. "Against reason," she growled, her tail tightening at his waist, drawing him closer. Her claws flexed against his back, but she was careful, always in control. "Then trust that I didn't survive being hunted, outwit your pride, and win your heart just to die at dawn." His voice was quiet, but it rang with conviction. Syrah's lips curled in a wry smile, but her eyes shimmered with unshed emotion. His thumb brushed another sensitive stripe along her cheek, and she shivered again, the glow along her markings intensifying. She pressed closer, her claws tracing light lines down his back. "You assume a lot, claiming my heart," she challenged, her voice rough with emotion. "Don't I?" Jace murmured, his other hand finding the base of her tail, where fur was softest. At his touch, her stripes flared like solar flares, shifting through colors he'd never seen: orange, crimson, violet, and something that felt like joy. "Your markings give you away. They have since the start." She pressed him against the crystal wall, her body shielding him from everything but her. The wall was cool against his back, the air between them charged with something wild and intimate. "Maybe I just like playing with my food," she purred, her muzzle brushing his ear, her hot breath sending shivers down his spine. "We both know I stopped being food to you. What am I now?" His words were a dare, but also a prayer. Her stripes blazed, painting the den with swirling patterns that pulsed with her heartbeat. For a moment, her expression was unguarded, vulnerable, open, burning with emotion her people had no words for. She lifted him easily, her strength effortless, bringing their faces level. You are impossible, maddening, clever beyond sense. You make me question everything I've learned. Jace wrapped his legs around her waist, trusting her utterly. The strength in her arms made him feel weightless, cherished. And you like that? He said softly. Everything about you excites me, Sierra admitted, her glow growing almost blinding in the close space. Your wit, your courage, the way you treat me is precious, not dangerous. He traced the lines of her face, memorizing the pattern of every stripe. You're both, he whispered, pressing his lips to hers. At first, Sierra froze, her body stiff, her breath caught in surprise at the alien gesture. Then, with a low, rumbling purr, she pressed him harder to the wall, deepening the kiss. The sound vibrated through her chest and into his bones. Her claws flexed, careful and possessive, as her markings strobed with heat. Jace melted into her, feeling the wildness of her spirit and the depth of her longing. His hands moved down her back, exploring the ridges of muscle, the warmth of living fur. She responded with a series of purrs and low growls, each one resonating through him, making his pulse race. When they finally parted, both breathless, her stripes pulsed with their shared heartbeat. Two lives synchronized for a moment outside of time. Show me more, she demanded, her voice rough, full of need and curiosity. Show me how humans love. He smiled, eyes shining. We have all night. I want to learn every pattern, every sound, every way I can make you shine. Sierra growled low and deep, her tail coiling tighter around him as she carried him deeper into her den. She set him down in the center of the pelts, kneeling to face him. Her hands explored his skin, mapping the unfamiliar terrain of his body. Jace responded in kind, tracing the spirals and flares of her markings, learning which touch made her purr, which made her catch her breath. They spoke little, communicating through touch, breath, and the music of heartbeats. Sierra's glow filled the den, shifting with every new discovery, painting the walls with the colors of passion and claim. Jace laughed softly, and she echoed him, their voices mingling with the night sounds outside. In the hours that followed, they explored each other's boundaries and desires, moving with equal parts curiosity and reverence. Jace found himself intoxicated by her strength and gentleness, the way she responded to his every wordless question. Sierra, in turn, marveled at his resilience and openness, the trust he placed in her hands. As dawn's first light began to filter through the crystal walls, Sierra curled around Jace, their bodies entwined on the bed of pelts. Her tail lay across his chest, her markings dim to a steady, contented glow. Jace pressed a final kiss to her jaw, his heart steady, his mind calm despite the coming trial. Sierra watched him with fierce pride and something softer. Whatever happens at sunrise, you are mine, she whispered. He smiled, tracing one last pattern along her side. And you are mine. Together they faced the coming day, warriors, lovers, partners, lit from within by the colors of the night they had shared. Dawn crept through the branches, casting golden light across Syrah's sleeping form. Her stripes pulsed softly in the hush of morning, sometimes flaring with what Jace hoped were happy dreams, flashes of orange and gold flowing down her body, illuminating the den's crystal walls. He lay beside her, close enough to feel her breath on his chest, watching the subtle dance of color beneath her fur. Gently, he traced a particularly bright stripe along her shoulder, recalling how it had glowed and shifted with their touches the night before. how it had thrummed beneath his fingers in the dark. Syrah stirred at his touch, her tail sliding across the pelts in search of him. She made a soft sound, halfway between a purr and a sigh, her eyes blinking open with feline grace. "You should rest," she murmured, voice husky with sleep but threaded with concern. Her hand found his, pressing it flat against her side, grounding him in her warmth. "I needed this more," Jace replied, his words quiet, full of awe and intent. He watched her, drinking in the sight of her in the morning light. How her patterns shimmered, how her eyes reflected the gold of sunrise. "How your patterns change with every touch. I could spend a lifetime learning them." She propped herself up on one elbow, her gaze sharp and searching. The muscles in her shoulders rippled with the motion, and her stripes pulsed in response to her emotions. "You sound like you're saying goodbye," she said, her voice low, edged with something raw and vulnerable. "No." Jace reached up and traced the stripe along her jaw, the one that made her purr, the one that signaled trust and pleasure. He smiled as the gentle vibration started in her chest. "I'm saying I finally have something to fight for." Her stripes flared in answer, the glow brightening to match the new intensity in her eyes. She drew closer, her breath warm on his cheek. "Then tell me your plan. Let me help." The plea in her voice was fierce, protective, and loving all at once. Jace smiled, the confidence in his expression softening as he looked at her. "The Pride leader expects me to fight like a human, gadgets and tricks. But that's not how I'll win." He brushed his fingers through her mane, letting the strands slip between his knuckles. Syrah's claws traced the faint marks she'd left on his back, a silent apology, a reminder of their wild night. "How then?" she pressed, hungry for answers, for reassurance. "I'll fight like one of you," Jay said. He touched her temple, then followed the line of her markings, reading their shifts. "Last night, you taught me your body's language, every marking, every cue. How you show intention, how you faint, how you strike." Realization dawned in her eyes, and her stripes surged with shock and pride. "You weren't just touching me for pleasure." Her voice was half accusation, half amazement. "Oh, it was for pleasure," he grinned, tracing a swirling pattern down her flank, eliciting a shudder that ran the length of her body. "But I was learning. Your people fight by reading each other's signals. The leader will think I'm blind to them. But I know what to look for now." She pulled him close, her tail looping around his leg, anchoring him to her. Her gaze was fierce, full of admiration and worry. "You're dangerously clever. But knowing signals isn't everything." Jace's fingers moved with practiced certainty, trailing along her stripes, drawing involuntary reactions. A twitch of her ear, a flare of her tail, a pulse of color in her markings. "Your people fight with instinct, tradition. I'll use those instincts but follow none. I'll break the rhythm, shift the cues, make him doubt himself." She studied him, her eyes full of pride and growing dread. "You risk everything," she said, voice trembling. "I risk everything for you. For us. The fight is just a formality now." Jace's gaze didn't waver. He meant every word. Her stripes blazed, the light so bright it painted the den's walls with wild, shifting patterns. In a sudden movement, she rolled him beneath her, pinning him with strength that was tempered by tenderness. "Then let me give you one last lesson," she purred, her voice thick with desire and urgency, her patterns shifting into the bold lines of dominance and possession. Jace smiled up at her, recognizing the subtle changes in her posture, the way her shoulders squared, the tilt of her chin, the narrowing of her eyes. "We should be preparing," he teased, though his hands traced lazy circles on her hips. "We are," she growled playfully, leaning down until her nose brushed his. I'm teaching you dominance. Her words vibrated with promise as her claws flexed against his skin, never hurting, always claiming. Very thoroughly. Jace's laughter was low and eager, blending with her rumbling purr. He watched her, fascinated as always by the interplay of color and light across her fur, the language of touch and motion that spoke louder than words ever could. Teach me then, he whispered, giving himself over to her strength, her wisdom, her desire. Syrah bent to him, her lips brushing his ear, her tail curling possessively. She moved with purpose, her hands guiding him through the lessons of her people, the balance of force and surrender, the ways to yield and to resist. Jace met her movement for movement, every touch a question, every sigh a promise to return. As the sun climbed higher, the den filled with their laughter, their gasps, the quiet music of bodies coming together in trust and longing. Syrah's stripes shifted with each new sensation, her patterns blooming beneath his fingers. Jace reveled in her ferocity, the wild beauty that had first terrified and then enthralled him. He learned her lessons well, how to signal surrender without submission, to feint and yield, to claim and be claimed. She showed him how to read the smallest flicker of a stripe, the slightest arch of her spine, the beat of her tail. With every minute, his confidence grew, not just in the fight to come, but in their shared future, whatever shape it might take. When they finally slowed, the world outside was bright with morning. Syrah lay draped across him, her breathing calm, her markings warm and steady. "You're ready," she murmured, pride and longing woven through every word. Jace pressed a kiss to her brow, feeling the truth of it settle in his chest. "I am. Because of you." Syrah traced her claws along his cheek, her touch lingering. "Whatever happens, I am yours," she said, her eyes fierce and gentle all at once. "And I am yours," Jace answered, pulling her close. The rising sun could wait. Jace had more of Syrah's language to master, more lessons to learn, more promises to make. As they tangled together once more, the world outside faded to nothing. The only thing that mattered was the rhythm they created, the language of stripes and skin, of heart and hope, and wild, reckless love. The arena of proof buzzed with anticipation. High in the forest canopy, woven platforms and spiraling branches formed a living amphitheater. Hundreds of hunters perched in the boughs, their stripes catching the dawn and weaving together into a shifting, hypnotic tapestry. Gold, orange, obsidian, and violet dancing in the morning light. Drums pulsed in the roots below, echoing the rising excitement. Jace felt the weight of all those eyes, the hunger and pride and suspicion. He stepped into the ritual circle, the moss beneath his feet soft and cool. At the center stood the Pride leader, imposing, battle-scarred, his mane shot through with silver and his stripes dark as ancient blood. He radiated authority, strength, and a warning. His eyes locked on Jace, and for a moment, the world narrowed to just the two of them. No weapons, no tricks, only skill until one yields or falls, the leader intoned, his voice rolling over the crowd like thunder. Jace nodded. He met the leader's gaze, then peeled off his shirt and dropped it to the moss. The marks Syrah had left the night before, claw trails, mottled bruises, the ghost of her stripes, were visible across his shoulders and chest. A gasp rippled through the assembled hunters. Surprise flickered like lightning in their patterns. Syrah's eyes found his, burning bright with pride and fear. The Pride leader's lip curled in disgust and challenge. "You dare display those?" Jace squared his shoulders, voice clear and proud. "I wear them proudly. Proof your finest huntress found me worthy of more than prey." A chorus of low growls and murmurs rose from the crowd, some angry, others intrigued. The leader's stripes flared with challenge. Without further warning, he lunged, a blur of muscle, claws, and fury. But Jace was ready. He watched the leader's stripes, saw aggression pulse down his forearms, a ripple of intent crossing his chest a split second before the strike. Jace slipped inside the attack, feeling the brush of fur, using the leader's momentum to spin past his guard. The crowd gasped, a susurrus of disbelief rustling through the leaves. Again and again, the leader attacked, each movement telegraphed in light, the subtle flicker of stripes revealing direction and force. Jace countered with the language he'd stolen from Syrah in the intimacy of the night. He moved like a hunter, not a cornered human. He mirrored the confidence and precision of the pride, reading every feint, every true threat. The leader pressed him, launching a flurry of strikes meant to overwhelm. Jace responded with impossible timing, countering each blow, twisting and redirecting the force. He watched the signals, the flick of a tail before a sweeping kick, the brief flare along the jaw before a feint, the contraction in the shoulders before a charge. Syrah's teachings, every lesson, every secret, lived in his muscles. The leader's stripes flickered with confusion, then frustration. His attacks grew sharper, but also sloppier. "What are you?" he gasped, stepping back, winded. "I am adaptation," Jace replied, ducking a blow and striking with 2 fingers at a cluster of stripes beneath the leader's arm. The pride leader grunted, staggered as his markings stuttered and flashed. "I am what happens when prey learns to read the hunter better than they read themselves." The crowd was utterly silent now, every hunter leaning forward, their own stripes flickering with anticipation and disbelief. The leader abandoned technique for brute force. He charged, swinging with wild power, claws raking the air. But Jace saw how anger made the signals bigger, easier to read. He slipped past, disrupting the leader's rhythm with precise touches, a hand to the ribs, a shoulder to the gut. Never cruel, always calculated. Each move sent a shiver through the leader's stripes, scattering their patterns, unbalancing his mind as well as his body. "Impossible," the leader growled, voice raw, eyes wide. "I can," Jace pressed, using everything Syrah had shown him, every secret stripe, every intimate response. He dodged a reckless swipe, then traced the leader's spine with just enough pressure to trigger a cascade of confusion in the signals. The leader stumbled, struggling to recover. Jace's final move was gentle, almost tender. He pressed his palm to the central stripe at the base of the leader's neck, the one Syrah had told him governed balance and authority. The effect was immediate. The leader's knees buckled and he crashed to the moss, his patterns flickering in chaotic, surrendering light. Jace stood over him, breathing hard but steady. "Yield," he said softly, voice carrying through the stunned hush. "Let your pride see that humans can be more than prey." A long moment stretched. The pride leader's eyes closed. His stripes shifted, slow and deliberate, to the pale blue of surrender. "I yield. You are hunter." Above, the hunters erupted in sound and light. Their stripes blazed in celebration, every color surging with excitement and disbelief. None brighter than Syrah's, her patterns a song of pride, longing, and victory. Her eyes met Jace's, shining with everything she could not say aloud. As the sun rose, the pride leader stood and addressed the crowd. "From this day, humans who prove themselves may learn our ways, and those who inspire new hungers." Syrah's stripes shimmered with suggestion, her laughter bright and infectious. Several young hunters giggled, their own patterns flirting with possibility. Jace turned to her, tracing a pattern on her arm that made her glow with renewed desire. "You are the best teacher. You've changed everything," Syrah whispered, pulling him close so their foreheads touched. "Our laws, our traditions. what it means to hunger for the hunt. Change was coming, Jace replied, cupping her face in his hands. I just gave it a reason and found something worth hungering for. Her stripes pulsed with emotion, a language more powerful than words. Will you stay? Help us learn? She asked, her voice trembling with hope and challenge. Jace smiled, tracing her stripes again, fingers gentle and sure. I was thinking of starting a formal exchange. There must be other humans who'd enjoy being hunted, for the right reasons. Syrah's tail wrapped possessively around his waist, her purr vibrating through both of them. Not by me, I've found my prey, though maybe that word doesn't fit anymore. Partner, Jace suggested, pulling her into a kiss that made her stripes flare with passion and certainty. Mate. Equal. Though I won't mind if you still want to chase me. The Pride leader cleared his throat, a low rumble that echoed through the arena, reminding them of the ritual feast that awaited. Syrah's stripes danced with mischief as she pulled away, just enough to catch the leader's eye. Of course, leader. We'll behave. For now. Hand in hand, Jace and Syrah walked toward the heart of the feast. Around them, young hunters mimicked the moves they'd witnessed, laughing as they tried to read each other's signals, discussing peace and possibility. The pride shimmered with change, the old ways giving way to new stories, new hungers. Jace caught snippets of conversation, words about unity, challenge, and curiosity. When you started hunting me, I never thought you'd end up wanting something so different, Jace teased, leaning in to nuzzle Syrah's cheek. She drew him close, her stripes swirling with intimacy and promise. This is just the beginning. I'll spend a lifetime learning new ways to hunger for you. Jace smiled, reading her desire in every flicker of light. Then I'll spend a lifetime giving you reasons to stay hungry. Above them, the jungle shimmered with promise, as hunter and hunted discovered a hunger that led to connection, transformation, and a future bright with possibility, where the greatest hunger was for each other. That's the end of the story. Please do not forget to subscribe to our channel, like the video, and write in the comments what you liked most about this story. Our team will be very grateful to you. You can find even more fascinating stories on our channel. See you in the next video.